So first off, Happy New Year, everybody. I was encouraged by some recent comments and posts people have made over the past video chats I've done. I wasn't going to do any more because I kind of didn't have much more to say about the New York City Ballet or my Don Quixote kind of search quest, the impossible dream. But something came up last night which set me off, and so I thought I'd do another one, start the new year correctly. As I've stated, the reason I started all this was because I read the board of directors' criteria of what they were looking for in a new director. And since I checked off all the boxes, I thought, well, what the hell, I might as well throw my hat in the ring. I knew I was a real long shot. I've been away from the company for many, many years, although I have been active, as you know. I'm trying not to repeat myself from some of my other posts, but if I do, then I'm sorry, or you can just shut me off. But what was said to me last night was kind of stuck in my craw, old-fashioned phrase, all night, and I woke up first thing this morning thinking about it, and I thought, well, I'm going to address this. A longtime patron of the company, who's a friend of mine, and was there during the Balanchine years and saw me come up in the company, and we've kept in touch over the years, is a supporter of mine, and recently in the last week spoke to some of the board of directors about the situation in New York and how it's going, etc. And my name came up, and what some of the board thought that I was too emotionally involved with the company, and that was the quote. John's too emotional about this. He's too emotionally involved. Well, of course I am. I would call it passion. I am passionate about the New York City Ballet, the school. I am passionate about Balanchine. I don't think being passionate is a bad thing. Maybe on some of these chats, my public video chats, I've said some things that might have ruffled a few feathers. I think maybe that's not the worst thing that could happen. I think some introspection is a good thing for any arts organization. I think also having a fresh pair of eyes that can see the forest through the trees is also a good thing. Sometimes a little cold water in the face can wake you up. I don't see any of this as negative. I have always professed totally honestly, with honesty, how I feel about the dancers and the changes in Balanchine's choreography that have crept in over the years. And I don't want to repeat stuff that's in my book because I want people to go out and buy it eventually. But of course I'm passionate about Balanchine. He's the closest thing to a father figure I ever had. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, my mother married 6 times. I barely knew my birth father, hardly at all. Balanchine was the first adult male that was a father to me. So of course I'm emotional about it. I want to see his works and his legacy preserved the best way possible, even though he himself didn't care about that. I'm sorry, George, you didn't care about it, but I do care about it. And I feel the New York City Ballet should still be the primary repository of his works and his legacy done the best way possible. And I've voiced over and over my concerns about the gradual decline that's been happening. It's been going on for 35 years, so it's nothing new. But I'm going to go into some details now about Peter Martins and about things I saw happening, because I would go back and forth to New York quite a bit in the beginning. The facts of the matter are that decline started happening in the Balanchine repertory within a matter of a year or so after he died. And people that were close to Balanchine, like Christine Redpath, who's still there, thankfully, but she doesn't seem to be doing as much as I would hope she would. But Christine certainly was close to Balanchine, and he liked her very much. And Victor Castelli, who Balanchine adored as a dancer and who was clearly going to be a ballet master at some point for the company. Well, I was told, and Victor called me often during those first few years after Balanchine died, that he was going crazy with all the changes that were taking place in the ballets. And I'm not talking about different dancers just interpreting the ballets differently. That's normal. I mean, ballet is not an art that you hang on the wall or you go to see in a museum and made of stone. Ballet is a living, breathing art form danced by humans, so consequently no two performances are alike, even if danced by the same dancer. So you're always going to have changes and a living, breathing, vibrant performance, because live people are doing it until androids take over, and then we're all screwed. But until that point, it's always going to be something you can experience fresh every time, even if it's exactly the same steps and the same musicality, because it's different people doing it. So I have no worry about that. My concern, because of my background with Balanchine and my personal relationship with him, which nobody can call into question. There's still enough people around, Patty McBride, Allegra Kent, certainly, Suzanne Farrell, that were there, that saw the relationship I had with Balanchine. So my personal protective tendencies are probably more than other people that just took his class or maybe danced for him. I owe him everything. And I think it's crucial, before I'm gone and the rest of us are gone, and there's only, 5 of us left, certainly starting with Suzanne Farrell, to really understand and know what Balanchine was about and what he was conveying in his choreography, which is a lot more than just the steps and the aesthetic. I keep using that word, but the aesthetic of the company, and that includes lighting, costumes, decor, the whole feeling of it. And enough people now have written me that have watched these chats to say they see it too. They see the change, they see the decline, but they can't put their finger on it because they're not dancers and they didn't work for him and they didn't have their ballets lit for him as I did, etc. So I know I'm kind of crying in the wind, a gale force wind hitting me, but I wanted to put all this down publicly so that at least it's on the public record, my opinion about this and why I think it's so important. I mean, a genius like Balanchine, come on, I mean, somebody like this doesn't come along in every several lifetimes. I mean, just look at it. I mean, American ballet is synonymous with Balanchine, like English ballet is synonymous with Frederick Ashton, or Russian ballet, Franco-Russian ballet with Petipa. I mean, there's only a few people. Jazz ballet, American vernacular, that's synonymous with Jerome Robbins. It's great, isn't it? And I was lucky enough to work very closely with Balanchine and Robbins. And, I'm not going to repeat everything I've said before, but on a different level than most dancers in the company. So the Peter problem started right in the beginning. And this is partially Balanchine's fault, and it's a good deal of it is Lincoln Kirstein's decisions here. Now, I'm not going to go into how Peter was named director because there's a lot of different opinions. I have my own opinion. Lincoln told me it was his choice, that he was the one and a couple board members to have a smooth transition, because Balanchine had not named a successor. I mean, we know that. He'd never put it in writing. When asked, he said nobody. He said it's all going to go with him. Lincoln said he wanted it to all go with him, which sounds like Balanchine to me. Mr. B would be like that. But the company needed a figurehead. Jerome Robbins insisted that he be named co-director along with Peter, which is quite understandable. The title was Ballet Master in Chief in the beginning. For about 6 years, I think, was both Peter and Jerry. But right from the beginning, Peter allocated a lot of the duties that Balanchine had done, meaning taking rehearsal, casting, to Rosemary Dunleavy, who had been the ballet mistress for the company for quite a few years under Balanchine. And Balanchine told me, she has a computer for a brain because she remembered counts, steps, where to put people. But he'd also told me never to let Rosemary stage the principal roles when she staged Balanchine ballets for my Los Angeles ballet. He said, I have to do that, or if I want to bring Allegra or Violette or whomever, because he believes strongly that for the principal roles, it's a more artistic position in a way than the corps de ballet. Not putting down the corps, don't be mad at me, but the principals have a lot of responsibility. They're in the spotlight. They carry a load. And Balanchine was always very, until the very last few years when he didn't care, but he was always very careful about who he named as principal dancers. That was a very precious title to him. That meant artistry, not technique. It meant more. It meant artistry. And you can't teach that. You can teach up to a point, but at some point the individual, the human, brings something special. It's alchemy, it's magic, it's, you know what I'm talking about. You call them stars or whatever. Balanchine said stars are in the sky, but he knew how to develop them. And you can learn that if you're halfway sensitive as a director. You can see in class when people have a special spark. And if you're halfway a kind human being, you know how to develop that and not just exploit it, which is unfortunately what happened a lot under Peter Martins. He would find these incredibly talented, gifted young people, practically children, and they were so wonderful that of course you want them to dance, but you also have to nurture them, you have to develop them, and you can't burn them out, which unfortunately has happened over the last 30 years. Now City Ballet is a big machine, so the dancers have learned to take care of themselves, much like what happened to the Paris Opera or other big companies when there's not a director that's a visionary or not a director that knows how to direct. But I'm not going to dump on, well, I will, you know, Peter had some good points, I must say. I want to make this very clear. He was a great fundraiser. He was a very good figurehead, looking at it superficially. He certainly knew how to work board members. He knew how to bring in new board members. That's very important for an artistic director. It's crucial. You have to be personable. You have to, you know, shake hands, go to parties, dance with the wives. I danced with Betty Ford when she was the president's wife when I was director of my own company. Secret Service got all upset because that was in the days of disco and the bump, and so there I am teaching Betty Ford how to bump on a dance floor. Oh my God, you know, the Secret Service came down. They just all surrounded, but she was laughing. She was fine. But anyway, so Peter raised a lot of money for the company, $50 million, I think, in a matter of a few years. I mean, that's massive. So, yes, he was a good director raising money. And the other thing that Peter did, which was great, was that he kind of realized that his own choreography was serviceable, it was workmanlike, it was fine. Some of it I liked, actually. I liked Ecstatic Orange. I mean, I haven't seen everything, but a few of his ballets I liked. But it certainly wasn't on the level, but on the level of Balanchine or Robbins. Nobody's on that level. But clearly the company needed better new ballets. And of course the New York City Ballet should also, besides the Balanchine repertory, should always continue developing new ballets. That's crucial to that company's image and iconic status in the world of ballet. It's the most creative company in the world, and still is, and still should be, no matter who the director is. That's a must. But Peter realized that he wasn't going to be able to step into Balanchine's or Robbins' shoes. Robbins left after a few years because he couldn't take it, the problems with Peter. So Peter was smart enough to invite Alexei Ratmansky, who's clearly, the front runner, uber talented choreographer. I love some of his ballets. I don't like some others, but for me to say I like anything is pretty rare. So I like a lot of Ratmansky's ballets. He knows how to use people very well. He knows how to develop dancers very well. He's a kind man. He's a nice man. I worked with him when I staged some Balanchine for the Bolshoi, and he was the director of the Bolshoi for about 3 years, and I worked there for a few months when it was his first year as director, and he wasn't around the theater much. He was so busy staging his ballets, because he's really a choreographer first, more than a artistic director sensibility, which is fine. Great. But Peter brought in Ratmansky. Now, why Ratmansky didn't take Peter up on his offer to be the resident choreographer is a question. Ratmansky gave a statement, and I don't remember it exactly, so I won't quote it, but he had a very polite, politic way of saying why he chose to go to American Ballet Theater rather than stay at New York City Ballet. But you can read between the lines. I think basically more artistic freedom at American Ballet Theater, so that's fair. And then Peter championed Chris Wilden's choreographic career, which was good. Chris is a good choreographer. That was fantastic. Chris left pretty quickly, actually, after he did some ballets to start his own company. which he abandoned. I don't know how else to put it, but he quit his own company after I think 2.5 years. Just wanted to freelance, and so that company went belly up. And Chris has had a spectacular career choreographing on Broadway and for companies all over the world. So Whelan is now, I think, assistant director of the Royal Ballet, which is perfect for him. And then the last one is the young Justin Peck, who's spectacularly talented, who's got a more Jerome Robbins sensibility. I wouldn't call him a classicist, but there's nothing wrong with that. Dancers love him in the company. He definitely, he's named resident choreographer, which always amuses me because, I mean, we had resident choreographers before. We were just called house choreographers. Jacques d'Amboise, John Terrace, myself, Balanchine, he called himself a house choreographer. But now the word is resident choreographer, so I see what's in a name. But anyway, Justin Peck, who I don't know, he took one of my classes when I taught in New York. I think he just wanted to check me out. Seems like a really nice guy, and again, he's extremely talented and doing very well. So the New York City Ballet is very healthy in the terms of new blood. So I'm not worried about that. My only concern is that I still think it should remain the primary resource for anybody in the world to see Balanchine's ballets dance the best, including decor, lighting, etc. And I wanted to, just mention this about Peter because, to be there for 34 years as he was, inevitably it's his company. So the gradual decline and the changes probably are pretty insignificant or invisible to people that are there on a daily basis. I'm not there on a daily basis. So when I've gone in to see the company or when I watch videos of it, the changes to me are more glaring. They stand out. Everything from steps on wrong counts, which is choreography, and Balanchine, the most musical of all choreographers. If you don't do the steps on the right counts, it's not the right choreography, especially with Balanchine. You can't smudge that, otherwise what have you got? Then the other things that, of course, drive me crazy is the lighting. Balanchine was a master with his Gene Rosenthal and then Ronnie Bates for lighting. That's gone. Some of the costumes I know he would not approve of. My God, I mean, was hands-on with the costumes. Now, again, if it's not a Balanchine ballet, I don't care, and it's none of my business. But if it's a Balanchine ballet, I know this stuff. And why change it? Because it works. Then the other thing that's going to be very interesting with whoever the new director is, can they develop talent? Do they know how to nurture? Do they know how to push in the right direction without burning somebody out? Maybe they do. I mean, I don't know who the new director is going to be. As I said before, I heard that it's probably going to be a woman for political reasons. That's not bad, but I don't think it should be a political decision. But will this person know how to do that? Now, I have a track record of doing that, and you can ask Damien Wetzel, for one. I also am tough, and you can ask any dancer that worked for me, or even some stars of European companies that I've been tough on, like Manuel Legris, who was a big étoile at the Paris Opera, and I had a disagreement with Manu about Tchaikovsky Pas, and he wanted to do some things in the variation and coda that I decided were not Balanchine, and we had a pretty big little row, and I won because I was staging the ballet, but Manu, that's the nickname for him, was so gracious because he came up to me after the opening night when he did it the way I wanted him to do it, and he got a huge ovation, and he came up and such a gentleman, and he apologized to me for being, a little stubborn, and he said, "John, I can't believe, sur marche, which means it works. And I said, of course it works, it's Balanchine. I'm not going to second guess Balanchine, and neither should you. And he went, oh, okay. He said, but I didn't think it would work like that, but it was big success, grand succès. And I said, yes, that's the thing. And I've had contretemps with Zakharova at the Bolshoi and with Lupatkina at the Mariinsky, and those are about the only two, actually. Most of the time I get along. But I insist, no matter how big the star is, that they dance the ballet correctly if I'm there to set it. And every single time it's worked out in the sense that the dancer realizes that actually if they would just do what the choreography is and the musicality, and I show them videos of other great dancers that Balanchine trained, like Farrell and Allegra Kent, Melissa Hayden, doing these roles so they could see it's not my opinion. It's not John Clifford's opinion. This is how the ballets were danced when Balanchine was rehearsing them. And whether they like it or not, these girls usually do it that way, and they always end up being shocked, and it opens up new worlds for them. And isn't that the point? So I hope that the new director can do that. I knew from the beginning of all these that it probably wasn't going to be me, no matter what my qualifications are and my background and my history. I've just been gone too long, I guess. But I wanted to clear that up about this me being too emotional thing. I think having a lot of emotions and a lot of love for the company you're directing is absolutely mandatory. And you can ask any of the dancers in my Los Angeles ballet, and they're around, or even some critics, even the ones that didn't like me. I am loyal to a fault. And I think that's pretty clear from these past videos I've been posting. But I'm careful about who I'm loyal to. And I'm loyal to Balanchine, number one, but the New York City Ballet and School of American Ballet and the dancers in the company dancing now, I'm loyal to, whether they know it or not. And I know a couple of the major ballerinas don't like me very much. They think I'm critical of them personally. I'm not, although it comes out that way sometimes. I just wish, that from the beginning, Peter had brought in the ballerinas that Balanchine had taught on, created on, took his class regularly, not the ones that came in once in a while and then bitched behind his back. And I won't name who they are, but unfortunately they're around still. But the ones, Suzanne Farrell, number one, absolutely Suzanne Farrell. And she and I were not friends, still aren't friends. So she's probably shocked if she hears how much I'm praising her. But Suzanne Farrell really understood Balanchine, and she knows how to teach it. She ran her own company for 16 years, and I saw it, and they really did things right. I had nothing, I couldn't complain like I complain now. If she had more money and more backing, she would have done even better. But Suzanne Farrell is a huge resource, and none of us are getting any younger. And the other one is Allegra Kent. I mean, Allegra is very spiritual in her own special way, but she is intelligent like you wouldn't believe, and she's very, very knowledgeable about the desired effects a ballerina can do to get maximum effect. There's mechanics involved besides just improvising. There's some really clever mechanics, and Allegra worked with me and coached my company, and she was giving all my dancers all these wonderful hints of just certain ways. I won't go into it, you have to be in class, but wow. All these things could help the current dancers, and the young ones especially, broaden their idea of dance, not just Balanchine, but how to be a ballerina. I'm glad they're bringing back Eddie Villela to coach a few of his roles. That's great, but Eddie was a very idiosyncratic dancer. He had his own special style, and I danced almost all of his roles, and you can't copy Eddie. Eddie was Eddie, and brilliant and amazing and exciting, but you can't copy him, and you shouldn't try. But he can tell you what Balanchine intended, which is crucial if you're going to do those ballets correctly. So, it's 2019, probably in a matter of days, City Ballet will make their announcement about who the next director will be. Whoever it is, I wish them luck. I pray they continue bringing in some old-timers to, coach. But that's not going to do enough, because you go in there, I did it once, for the Balanchine Archives, Valse Fantaisie, but it doesn't have an impact on how the performers are going to perform the next night. It has to be somebody that is going to be there standing in the wings watching every goddamn performance like Balanchine did, so that the dancers feel there is someone who cares and who's watching. And that if they say, okay, you know, that peak arabesque is on the count of 8, it's not on the count of 1. One of my peeves in Waltz of the Flowers now, all the dewdrops have changed it, so they chenet and they do the peak arabesque on 1 of the following phrase instead of 8 of their phrase, and get out by 1 because that's when the chorus starts. But little things like that drive me nuts. Change at the end of Symphony in 3 movements, which I danced probably more than any other boy, really, in my day. At least I know I did. They changed the ending of that, which completely ruins the impact. But these are, you know, this is all stuff that probably never will be fixed now. Now, if my projects go through and I have my own company again, then you'll see some different balancing, but I don't know if I'll, you know, get these projects funded. If they do, I'll be able to start a company again, and I'll put back all the missing pieces in the balancing the way I remember them. And it's not just me. I don't want to, you know, sound too egotistical, although I'm sure I do. But as I said, Suzanne, Allegra, Kay Mezzo knows a lot. Unfortunately now, Karen is dead. Violette Verdi has died. Melissa Hayden is gone. Oh, it just breaks my heart that the knowledge they had hasn't been passed on. Luckily, I got them out in Los Angeles, and so I learned some things. Not enough. But, you know, this is a tragedy. And I'm just was praying that now that the Peter Martins era is over, that the board could do something major. And unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. However, Balanchine knew this was going to happen. That's a little solace to me personally, as I said, because I care too much. But I guess it'll go the way of Petipa, that you'll see a Balanchine ballet in 50 years, and it'll be, some of the steps will be there. It'll be probably better than Petipa as far as being authentic, but it won't have the same flavor. It'll be like speaking a language phonetically. Again, I don't want to end on a downer. So thanks for listening. I'm going to finish with a little happy bit of me and Valse Fantaisie showing with Sarah Leland, who does it beautifully. And in the core of all people are Meryl Ashley, Susan Hindle, Susie Pilar, and Deborah Flomine. All-star 4 girls in the core. A little bit of Valse Fantaisie at the end of this. I hope 2019 is better for all of us. And I can't imagine I'm going to be doing another one of these, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. Those of you that are enjoying these chats, thank you very much for letting me know that. Really, I really appreciate it. It really means a lot. Take care, everyone. Bye.